It's been almost 2 decades since we started our journey to educate and help you take action so you may better manage your financial future. Our goal is to help you accomplish your life's purpose. This podcast reveals financial tips, strategies, and insights that will help you to set your financial goals and guide you along the way. This is Managing Your Financial Future, brought to you by the advisors at Lucia Capital Group.
The podcast, there it is. It's Managing Your Financial Future. I did get it right this time. Once again, Professor Plum. I don't have notes on this. I mean, I have a couple of things that I use, but I don't necessarily. This is not a scripted podcast.
Right. And if you had used the name of it last time, you would have gotten it right last time. You just didn't use the name at all.
Well, I did. Because I happened to be listening to my little intro, and it says, this is Managing Your Financial Future. And so, but if I'm not paying attention to it, then, I might get the name of the show wrong. Well, we've done this for so long. We've done this 30-something years in one form or another, and the names of the show has changed over the years, but we're still doing the same thing. We're still talking about retirement. We're still talking about
managing your money, managing your financial future. That's a very good name for what we're talking about.
Well, it is. It sounds like an awkward name from a marketing standpoint, but honestly, managing your financial future is exactly that's what financial planning is supposed to be. Managing your financial future. It's not about getting the largest rate of return, as some people really think it is. I'm going to take my money here. They're going to get me, 30% per year. They better.
They promised me. Well, if they did, they're lying.
So it's not about that. It's about managing. It's about managing your taxes. It's about managing your income. It's about managing your expectations.
It's about managing your reactions to things that are outside your control.
Behavioral finance.
Very much.
Last week, by the way, Professor Plum, you're a certified financial planner professional. I'm Johnny Dean, podcast host, not an advisor, but I learn a lot. I have over the years, over the 30, 20, I don't know, something years we've been doing this. And one of the things that I knew going in was that I love guarantees. I've said this before. I love guarantees. I love them because I want to know what my worst case scenario is. Okay. Right. Give me the bottom line. Tell me what is the worst thing that can happen and I'll deal with it. I don't want to have those kinds of unknowns.
If I can handle the worst case, then anything else is just beneficial.
It's gravy beyond that. I mean, yes, I'd like to know what the worst, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so last week we had a great discussion about retiring early. We don't discuss retiring early that much, but it happens. People do retire early. We talked about the ways that somebody who retires well before age 60, 62, 65, some of the things that they have to look out for. Health insurance, they're not going to have that. They have to pay for that themselves. They could potentially have penalties coming out of money in their 401k and their IRA and all that stuff. They have to make their money last longer than somebody who's age 65. The payout period, as you said, Professor, is longer. We dealt with each one of those last time. And one of the things that came up too was people who retired age 50, 52, 53, 55, in some cases, I don't know how many, but in some cases have pensions. We talked about safety officers, things like that. Certain military, which maybe you could put in the safety officer camp.
I would.
But they oftentimes have pensions that are guaranteed either by the PBGC or whatever. But those can be considered forms of guaranteed income.
Right. It's outside of their control. The pension is guaranteed by some trust or some entity that you don't have to worry about the market conditions. Mm-hmm. You don't have, somebody else has made that promise to you. And you can, depending upon whether your city or is a 10 million person city or a 32 person city, you got to wonder about that. But you look at how you're pretty sure that check's going to be coming in. Yeah, and you probably have a cost of living adjustment on that. Most safety members do as well. So you've got a certain baseline income. And in some cases, that baseline is more than you will ever need.
Well, even if it's not, Professor, one of the things that would help people retire early is that they don't need to take as much from their portfolio, if anything at all. Having the guarantees of a pension, in this case, may help somebody take the pressure off their portfolio.
Well, that guaranteed income takes away a lot of that behavioral finance we mentioned earlier.
Sure.
We are less worried about the movement of the market if I'm not drawing income out of the market.
Right. Now, I'm not going to get into I'm not going to get into retiring early, since we covered that last time. So I want to talk about, but I do want to talk about the aspect of guaranteed income and how it can help somebody who's not retiring early, but somebody who's retiring in their 60s, whatever it is.
Well, as I mentioned, the behavioral finance part of this, when you have a distribution coming from your portfolio and you go through a downturn like we saw at the beginning of this year, the first quarter of this year, not a good quarter. It's a matter of, you start to think, wow, is this ever going to end? When is it going to hurt my ability to take my income for the rest of my life? And even if you've got a good plan in action, it can breed doubts, and doubts can make you not sleep really well at night. And part of the retirement planning process is getting yourself in a position where you can sleep really well at night. You don't have to worry about it. And so covering that behavioral issue, that behavioral finance issue, where you are not worried about the unknown events that could really hamstring a market in the relatively short term, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, getting past that. Pensions have been a source for a lot of people that have had those for many years. But what if you don't have that pension?
Exactly.
What kind of other areas of guaranteed income can you create in your portfolio? We all, if you don't have the pension, that you probably have Social Security. Now, I say probably because not everybody's paid a lot into Social Security. I know a lot of people, that did pretty well, were self-employed, but they wrote everything off, and so their Social Security isn't all that big because
it's near the minimums.
Yeah, they tried to reduce all the taxes as possible, one of which was the FICA tax or self-employment tax, and now their Social Security is not very big, so they don't have a very big growth. But what if even if you do have a decent size Social Security, but your spending is decent size too?
Well, yes. I referred to a study a couple of weeks back on an episode. I think it was one of these episodes, but where it was discovered that people tend to spend, during their working years, people tend not to touch their savings.
No, they're actually building their savings.
They're building their savings. And so they adjust in many cases, not all, but in many cases, they adjust their lifestyle and their spending to
their paycheck.
Correct. So
their net paycheck after they've had the money taken out for their 401k.
Yes. So they spend their income. And what this study found, I don't have it with me, but there are a couple of them. What the study or studies have found was that even in retirement, people tend not to necessarily spend their savings.
They live on their cash flow that's being generated from Social Security, pensions, and guaranteed income. Because
I think their mentality is, I don't want to spend it. I've spent my whole life and I really don't want to watch that number go down, which is fine. So talk about guaranteed income. Now you said, what if you don't have a pension?
Well, guaranteed income does help from a behavioral standpoint. If you need
absolutely,
if you need to spend $7,000 a month and you've got a pension for $8,000 a month, you're feeling pretty good about retirement. And if you have some IRA and other monies on the side, you're feeling even better.
Absolutely. So this guaranteed portion, if you don't have a pension from your company, Professor.
Right. But how do you go about getting it? And how much should you even try to recreate? Some people create they try to create stable income by having real estate, lots of it. Mm-hmm. And not just one rental property where if you lose one tenant, you don't have any cash flow for a little while. We're talking about, having, pieces of apartment communities where you have lots of stability to income. So
not guaranteed,
not necessarily guaranteed, but it's fairly stable.
Yeah.
Like I said, the more units that you have or more pieces of units that you have, the more stable the income tends to be. But that's usually something that's put in place long before you actually retire. That's something people work a lifetime building up. So when you retire, if you don't have that rental income, if you want to look at how much you're actually going to spend, not necessarily your entire retirement goal, because some of your retirement goal is variable. Maybe you take that European vacation this year, but you only want to do that once every couple of years because that's a long flight, and you just
right.
You have to go long enough to forget how long that flight was, and then you start thinking you want to go back.
So you go to Wally World instead.
Yes.
Yeah. Drive cross country in the old
country squire
family truckster. There you go. Okay.
So you want to look at when you wake up in the morning, you have expenses. Everybody has some form of expense. Rent, a mortgage, property tax. Even if you've paid the house off, there's going to be some property tax and maintenance. You've got gas and electric. You got basic food. Your health insurance. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're on Medicare, but there's still a premium to Medicare. Yep. So you've got certain expenses that you have to cover on a monthly, ongoing basis. You want to what we have found, and what other studies have shown to be true, is that you want to have income equal to or greater than your gotta have expenses, your wake up expenses, what I call them. So if your baseline budget is $3,000 or $4,000 a month to pay for your insurance, your car insurance, your basic maintenance, your house and things, not the new roof necessarily, but the things that happen every month, month in, month out, and every year. Car insurance may not be on a monthly basis, but homeowners insurance. You want to have enough income coming in to cover those expenses. So you figure out what those expenses are. Yeah. Then you say, okay, I need $4,000 a month or whatever the number is. Then you go and you look at what income sources am I going to have that I can't screw up, that the market can't screw up, that the market won't take away, won't go up or down. So one of the main ones for people is going to be Social Security. So how much in Social Security will you be receiving? Do you have some form of pension? Maybe it's not a huge pension, but maybe it's $500, $600, $700 a month. Hey, that adds up. Mm-hmm. You add that to your Social Securities. If you're married, how much do you have coming in? I was talking to a single individual whose fixed expenses are about $5,000 a month. His Social Security, when he retires, is going to be $2,700, $2,800. He doesn't have any other pensions. And so he's looking at trying to supplement that delta, that difference. And he was talking to me, and he asked me if I had looked into any of that type of thing. And I said, I have looked into it, but my fixed expenses are about what yours are. But because I'm a two-person household, and she has a pension, I have a small pension, between the Social Security, the pensions, that I'll have more income coming in on a guaranteed basis from those pensions and Social Security than my wake-up expenses. So the only thing I need to cover is my variable expenses when I ultimately retire. And so I'm not necessarily going to go look for any more guaranteed income. We've already created the guaranteed income. He didn't have enough guaranteed income, so he was going to start looking for other types of guaranteed income. And when you talk about guarantees, there's very few places that you can use that G word and get guarantees. Obviously, pensions backed by the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. Mm-hmm. Social Security is guaranteed by the government. So
federal government. Yep.
So where else can we get a guarantee? There's not that many places. Some people talk about, well, we have portfolios that have maintained a certain distribution for the last X number of years, but they can't use the word guarantee. And I even though the portfolio has maintained a certain distribution for a long period of time, when the markets drop, like they did in 2008, like they did in 2020, like they did even in 2018, it was a short-lived one, people get worried about that distribution. And it's natural. They want to spend less.
So where do you get this guarantee from?
There's only a few places. And one of the main places is from an insurance company. Insurance companies, you're looking at that insurance company as the guarantor. So make sure you're dealing with a quality insurance company.
It's, as they say, the guarantee is based on the full faith and credit of whatever
the
issuing
claims paying ability of that insurance company.
Claims paying ability of the insurance company, yeah.
Yeah, so you check and make sure the insurance company is a reasonable insurance company, a good quality insurance company, but they can give you guarantees. And they come in different forms. And they're going to come in the form of a word that some people just cringe to hear.
Does it begin with the letter A?
It does. And when I hear people cringe just from hearing the word annuity, it tells me they don't really know what an annuity is. Now, when I say an annuity, that's kind of a misnomer too, because there is not a specific one only type of annuities. Come in multiple different forms. Some I don't care for ever. I'll tell you that up front. And some used appropriately work very well for what they were designed to do. The problem is most people that buy them for the wrong reason. They're buying them for the sizzle, and they don't even understand how they work.
I can go back to my tool analogy.
Yes.
Which is that annuities, like other financial products, are like the tools in your tool shed. Most are designed for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
Some can be used for a couple of different things, but for the most part, they're designed for a specific purpose. I will not use a hammer to dig a ditch.
You can turn around, use that claw, and you can, dig a ditch with it. It's not the most efficient use, and you'll probably get mad at yourself for doing it that way. Why did I buy this dang gum hammer? Because you bought it for the reason. The fact that you used it to build a ditch isn't the hammer's fault.
No, it's somebody who sold me. You see, I should buy a shovel for that. But somebody who only sells hammers is going to tell me, no, hammers are good for everything. Never buy a shovel. All right. So
if all I can sell are hammers, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. That's what it is. I mean, do you want to paint a wall? Hammers are great for that, sir.
And one of the biggest issues I hear with annuities is they get painted with a very broad brush in that they're too expensive. They cost. There's all these fees. Well, for some annuities, there are fees. And for some annuities, they're not worth the fees that you're paying. That's why you don't buy those types if you're using them that way. But others don't have fees. Oh, blasphemy, Rick. You're telling me the journalists are telling me the other thing.
That they all have fees.
But the problem is there are lots of different types of annuities. Now, there is one type of annuity that will offer, there's actually two types of annuities that offer guaranteed income.
In other words, I could go to this is going to an insurance company and buying the pension that I don't have through my through a company.
And there's two basic styles. One is an immediate annuity, what they call an immediate annuity, and the problem with this one that people don't like is that there's no cash value to it. I take $100,000. I give it to the insurance company, and the insurance company is going to give me $500 a month for the rest of my life.
This is an example. The numbers can change.
Right, these are very dependent on age. Yeah. The older you are, the bigger the payout. The younger you are, the lower the payment.
But what in the case of an immediate annuity?
But I give the insurance company $100,000. The only thing I get from that is $500 or whatever the number is. In this case, I'm going to say $500 a month. And if I want to change, nope, can't change it. I can't get my $100,000 back. I can't even get a reduced number back. There is no cash to it anymore. What they're promising me is the monthly income for the rest of my life.
So in your example, my $100,000 is gone. I can't get that back except hope that I live long enough that $500 a month.
I live the 14 years and then start getting extra, getting a return.
Yeah.
Now people are like, well, if I die in the first year, the insurance company keeps all the money. Well, that is one option, and that will give you the highest payout during your lifetime.
But it's a risk.
So if you don't want to take that risk, you can put other payment options on it, terms certain, joint lives, and all these other things. Lowers the payout a little bit depending upon what risk the insurance company is taking on.
Okay.
Now, the reality is right now they're not the most attractive because they're based on current interest rates. And the insurance company can't earn that much.
Immediate annuities
are based on current interest rates, and current interest rates are pretty low. So the payouts aren't that good. Now, back in the 90s, we were doing buckets back in the 90s. You could get pretty good, what we call internal rates of return. What is my real in my pocket rate of return? Even on, 7 and 8 year term certains where they paid out pretty well and they were guaranteed. They paid out better than what you could get on CDs and banks. Yeah. And it was guaranteed by a big insurance company.
Not so much anymore.
Not anymore. Not so much. Now, for somebody who's in their later 70s, who's not worried about leaving a legacy, who is more concerned with that cash flow, these can still work pretty well. But that's one type. And they're not as popular today as they used to be because of the payouts based on interest rates are fairly low. The other type that started becoming popular around the turn of the century, end of last century, beginning of the century, and gained a lot of popularity through 2008 to 2012, are these guaranteed lifetime payment annuities. Now, they can be based on, there's lots of different types of annuities. There's variable annuities, index annuities, fixed annuities. You can actually get a rider on almost any one of those types that guarantees that you can take a systematic withdrawal.
Now, rider is an added
option.
feature that you pay for.
Generally, you pay for them. Sometimes the cost is baked into the return that they're not giving you at that point.
But you're paying for it sort of that
You're paying for it one way or another.
Yeah.
The insurance companies don't do anything for free. But that doesn't mean you can't use them for what they're designed to do for your advantage. But you can get these. Now, these are systematic payouts. So if I give the insurance company $100,000 and they promise to give me, $500 a month, well, it'd probably be more like $400 a month because I still have access to my cash.
Okay, so in this case, this is the difference here. In the immediate annuity case, I gave the insurance company, in your example, $100,000. They're going to pay me X amount, 500, whatever it is per month, back for as long as I live.
Right.
Okay. So,
but that $100,000 is gone.
$100,000 is gone. It's been annuitized.
Right.
But in this case of this particular annuity,
the $100,000 is not gone. It's invested in something. It's invested in, depending upon what kind of underlying annuity I'm using. Am I using a fixed indexed annuity? Am I using a fixed annuity? Am I using a variable annuity? So the cash is invested. Now, it's unlikely that the cash will earn more than they're paying you out every year. Some years it might, especially if it's a variable. Some years it won't. But let's say 2 years into this, I decide that I win the lottery or whatever, or I get married to somebody else who has a big pension.
And I don't need this anymore?
I don't need this guaranteed income anymore for whatever reason. And I say, well, I want to cash this thing out. With the immediate annuity, the earlier one, no cashing it out. With this one, whatever the cash value is, after 2 years, I put in 100, my cash value may be 95, or maybe who knows what it is.
So you can get all that back.
I can get all that back, subject to a surrender charge for the first X number of years. But I can change my mind and get it all back, or get whatever's left back. Or I can just continue to take the monthly income, and if the cash value, now the promise from the insurance company is if the cash value ever goes to zero, they'll continue paying me for the rest of my life.
Well, which is true whether it's an immediate annuity, although there's no cash value in immediate. But I'm saying if you've given them $100,000, they could wind up giving you 100.
They can give you a lot more depending on how long you live.
Right.
So but this is a systematic withdrawal. So the cash is still there. It's still kind of invested. There are fees, either internal or fees where that you are stated that you see what these fees are. But the cash is still there, invested how you want to invest it, whether it's a variable, fixed index, whatever. So there is it's kind of a crossover. Your payouts are not as high, but you gave up the cash in the immediate annuity to get the higher payout. This one, you didn't give up that cash. You still have access to it. So
if the
bottom line is it gives you a guarantee income that no matter how long you live, you can't outlive the income. You've got this guaranteed income.
Well, now here comes a question from somebody that would be, well, gosh, then if I can do this, why wouldn't I do this at age 45?
Because if the insurance company was looking at how long they're going to have to pay this out, and they're saying at 45, we're not going to give you much of a payment at all. And so typically you start the payouts in the 65 zone. Maybe a couple years before, a couple years after. These are not for somebody who's 80 years old. Now, there's a couple of underlying factors I think that are important for the consideration of buying a lifetime income annuity. Longevity. You want to have the expectation of longevity.
Because the longer you live,
that's where you actually get your return. I mean, if
the more it pays out.
If I'm getting a 5% payout, I'm not really, depending upon what I get back in cash value, I'm not really getting much of a rate of return until I've lived quite a while. Yeah. So I want the expectation of longevity. I want the expectation that I have a certain amount of fixed income that I need. We talked about this earlier. If you want or need or to have that level of a certain amount of income coming in, and you don't have it from other sources, pensions and Social Security, these can be appropriate. If you already have all that fixed income expectation met through other sources, there's no need to look at these types of income or assets.
There's no need to buy a pension, in other words, what you're saying, because you've already got it covered through other sources. Why would you pay?
Why would I pay anything to get something I don't need?
Exactly. And there is where the problem is some people have, because they will say that annuities are often sold to people who don't need them.
And in many cases, unfortunately, they tend to be.
They can be.
They can be. But the problem is the marketing of these types of products. The marketing, now it's not as bad as it used to be, but man, for a while, these things were the Wild West, where you can get stock market returns with no risk, or they tell you that you're guaranteed a 6%, a 10% return.
Oh, please.
That is not a true statement. Now, and this comes into, you really need to talk to somebody who understands how these products work and will give you the true bottom line on how they work. But those numbers are not real.
You're not.
There's an income base and a cash value. The income base very may well go up at a predetermined set rate, 6, 7, 8, even 10%. But that's an income base that is used to determine your payout when you ultimately start taking money out of it. Your cash value is not guaranteed to do that. But they make it sound like your cash value is guaranteed to do that. Unless you know the questions to ask, you don't know what you don't know. And it sounds really good.
So they're enticing you with numbers that sound like you're getting rates of return like 8, 6, 8, 10% guaranteed.
Right. And that's not true. That doesn't mean that these are not a good investment for some people. The studies have shown that people that have enough guaranteed income and use these types of annuities to create the appropriate amount of guaranteed income in their life,
if they need it,
tend to leave a larger legacy. Now, the rates of return on these are not the highest rates of return. You're getting a guarantee, and that guarantee costs something. The cost is in the rate of return. So how, if I'm getting less of a rate of return basically on this asset, is my legacy bigger when I pass away? Well, the reason is the behavioral finance standpoint.
And you just tend to let it slide?
You tend to let it recover. You don't jump out of it after it's already gone down and then wait till you feel good about the market to get back in, because by the time people feel good about the market, it's already recovered and you missed the upturn. You got a lot of that downturn when you sold out after the downturn, but you missed the recovery. Now, sometimes they work out well and they actually give you a reasonable return, but that's not why you're buying them.
But don't count on it.
You're buying them for the guaranteed income that you can't outlive.
The guarantee is in the income, not in any kind of rate of return.
And that is sometimes worth every penny you're paying for it. And there's times where it's not worth a dime.
Is it true? Would you say then that annuities are most effective simply on the guaranteed income side in many cases?
Well, no,
I don't want to paint a broad brush of annuities.
There's other types of annuities that work well. Just a fixed, what they call a multi-year guarantee fixed annuity. I mean, if you've got money that's going to sit on the sidelines for 3 years or 4 years.
Like a CD alternative kind of thing?
They are CD alternatives, in my opinion.
They can be.
I was looking at 3-year CDs, and they're in the 1.4, 1.5% according to Bankrate, and a 3-year guaranteed, 3-year surrender period. But after that, you can have all your money, just like a CD. Is 2.3, 2.4.
How can they pay more? Now we're back on rate of return.
Right now, it is a rate of return play. Yeah, but there's no income guarantee on this. It's just a principal guarantee on this.
So how are they paying more than, say, a bank? How are they able to pay 2.5 and a bank might pay 1.5? Over 3 years or whatever.
Because they can. Maybe overhead, maybe I don't know all the factors on that.
All right.
They just typically have.
Okay.
Then you've got fixed indexed accounts where the principal is guaranteed and you can earn a rate of return up to certain parameters. This is where it gets dicey. I don't want to necessarily get into it, but they sound really simple. But the devil's in the detail with a fixed index annuity. But you can get a better than CD rate out of that most of the time, better than a bond rate for the same time period bond. And typically fixed index annuities are in the 5, 6, 7. They'll go out to 15 years, but I would not do a 15-year fixed index annuity. Then you've got structured capital annuities where you don't have the pure guarantee. You have a little bit of downside, protection.
These could go on and on.
But so far, everyone that I just talked about, they don't have any fees. So the biggest complaint about annuities on the ones that didn't exist on the ones I just talked about. Now, I will caveat that by saying there are a few structured capital ones with a fee. I'm not going to say they're all without. But you just have to know what you're getting into. And you need somebody who knows how they work, to whether or not it works for what you're trying to accomplish. Anybody who leads with this is a great product for you, without knowing what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, okay, everybody's trying to accomplish, I want to get a better rate of return. I want to retire. I want to have lots of guaranteed tax-free income with a high rate of return. Okay.
And no risk.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Okay. Until somebody knows exactly, and even then, these products shouldn't be used for all of your portfolio. I cannot think of a single time where you would put all of your money into one of these types of products, or even a combination of all of these types of products. It's just you don't want to use them for everything.
So you need to know what you're buying. You
got to know what you're buying, but it's hard unless you're willing to read the prospectus or read the fine print and do a little math and then study how they work. It's tough to know how they're going to work.
Well, how is anybody going to know how this works? I mean, the pitch seems great.
And that's what it is. And here's the pitch. Don't pay no attention to that small print.
And the delivery, you could wind up getting beaned, and it's going to be too late. Well, I mean, when you're
but that doesn't mean that they're bad. It means used appropriately, they work very well.
Could you even come up with a scenario where one of these high fee variable types? I mean, there must be a use for those somewhere.
I'm not a huge fan of the traditional variable annuity, which those are the ones that have the fees. The sales pitch there is that they're tax deferred. So if you've got $100,000 and you're sitting in a mutual fund and you just got a big capital gain distribution you had to pay tax on, but it was reinvested, so you didn't get any cash out of it, and you're like, this stinks.
Like we talked about a couple weeks ago.
I'm not a big fan. So you could put it into a variable annuity, have similar what they call sub accounts that are kind of like mutual funds in the variable annuity, similar growth patterns and things of that nature. But you have to pay a fee for it. Fees usually 1.5%, give or take, every year. I'm not a big fan of those, only because if I really look at it and I'm getting long-term capital gains and I'm redeploying that, I'm paying a fee in taxes, but I'm increasing my basis and I'm paying capital gain rates instead of ordinary income. With the annuity, I'm paying it, if I'm expecting a 10% rate of return, I'm paying, 10% of my return in fees. Yeah. And that doesn't add to my basis. And then when the net gain comes out, I'm still paying ordinary income on it,
as opposed to capital gains.
Right. Yeah, and I can't get my basis with a mutual fund. If I had 100,000 in there, it went to 110, and I wanted to get 10,000 out. Okay, I'd pay some tax on some of it, but a lot of that'd be return of my principal. I could get my 10 grand and pay a very little. If I wanted to take 10 grand out of the annuity that had gone up by $10,000. That's all taxable. I have to pay all the
at ordinary income rates.
I have to take all the appreciation out of it before I can get to my basis back.
And it's
ordinary income.
Yeah, which is the highest tax you can pay. But,
that's my personal opinion.
I wouldn't like those either.
I don't care but that doesn't mean that putting a guaranteed income rider on that is a bad thing. Now, I will say one thing: know that if you are buying these with personal money, know how the taxation works, because the guaranteed lifetime income rider. I had somebody one time who had a single premium annuity. When you buy a single premium immediate annuity, there is every payment's part taxable, part non-taxable. With a guaranteed lifetime income product, it's a systematic withdrawal, and that's a different tax game. And so
you could wind up paying more in taxes. You're saying
the payment could be 100% taxable, or after a while, if you didn't have any gains in it, could be 100% tax free because it's only your money coming back out. So it's a little more complicated. So you just have to know what you're getting into. Like everything we've talked about. Know what you're doing.
Know what you're buying and know what your purpose is. Does this fit my purpose?
Know why you're doing it.
And how much am I paying in fees? Because even if it meets your purpose and you don't like the fees that it's charging, maybe that's not for you.
And it could be a great product for you. Now, I may think it works perfect for your plan. But if you're uncomfortable with the fact that there is a fee or whatever the return is, and you're uncomfortable with that, then it's not me buying it. It's you buying it. You have to be comfortable with it too.
It's funny. You just said it. It all comes back to knowing what it is you're buying.
Right.
Understand the product.
And making sure that product fits with what you're trying to accomplish. Because if all you're doing is buying it based on the sizzle, the sales pitch, you're probably going to be disappointed in the reality of it because it's not going to live up to what you thought it was going to do, but you have no idea why you even bought it. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have different investments, many annuities. Well, why'd you buy this? Because they said it was a great thing. But what were you trying to accomplish with this? Where does it fit in your plan? Crickets. I don't have a plan. I just go with the flow.
Yeah, that's probably the worst. And oftentimes I think people who bought those are more susceptible to these big pitches. These
dinners.
They're selling annuities at steak dinners. Those have made a comeback.
They've started to now that we can go out again.
Yeah, it's like, wow, hey, have a great. And they always say, we're not here to sell you anything. Come on, why are you there?
Why are you paying for Please. My steak dinner?
You're just a nice person. You're just a nice person paying for dinner at this fancy
restaurant.
Trying
to get all the homeless people off the street.
I don't know what it is, but yes, it comes down to knowing what, and that's why we're talking about this today. That's why we've been talking about this today. I think it's important that people understand that get past this, have somebody explain this to you in terms that you can understand. Know what the fees are. Know what the potential taxes could be.
But understand that they may be the perfect fit for a portion of your portfolio. They may make your life a lot easier.
They may very well. Like I said, I love the guaranteed portion myself.
They may work very well for your specific need.
So don't just throw them to the curb.
Right. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because you've heard a general statement on something.
Yeah.
And it may be true for you. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe you do. And they can work very well when used appropriately. And so have a plan done, have the appropriate implementation done to fill the different pieces of the plan. There won't be a one-size-fits-all plan. Everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different. Their cash flow is different. Their maintenance, their wake-up expenses compared to their overall. I've met people that have very high wake-up expenses, but they don't spend a lot more than that. They just kind of, hang out at home and do things at home, but they have a lot of expenses there. I've met other people whose, wake-up expenses are fairly low, but they got very high overall expenses because they're doing crazy stuff. Having different types of fun.
Everyone's different. Everyone's different. So know what you're buying, understand it.
Why you're buying it.
Why you're buying it. And this is what you do with people, Professor Plum.
Yep. Everybody here at the Lucia Capital Group is very versed on all of these different types of issues. And we set plans and we fill plans. And it's not a matter of coming to you, hey, do I have the greatest investment in the world for you?
If somebody walks in and says, hi, I got the greatest product in the world, you're going to love this. And what's your name again? I'm sorry, we just met. No, walk away from that.
How does it fit into your plan?
Yeah.
But that they can fit in for a lot of people.
They can, and in some cases they can't. If you want to know more about things like this, if you want to know more about guaranteed income, if you're interested in perhaps pensionizing a portion of your portfolio because you like the idea of guarantees and you think you may live a long time, at least check it out. 800-644-1150. You can talk to Professor Plum or any of the Lucia Capital Group advisors who work with Professor Plum on all these plans. They make sure if you ever anything you don't understand, you say, I'm not sure I get it. That's not a dumb question, Professor Plum.
Well, that's a great one. And I'd love to hear that more because some people will just, okay. And they don't know it. And then it festers and they don't sleep well. And that always comes back to be, well, they didn't tell me everything.
Well, yeah. So even if you've explained it, how it works.
Make sure you understand it.
If you say, yeah, I kind of get it, but can you make it even simpler?
One more time.
Yeah, one more time. Fine. Absolutely. Don't ever buy anything you don't know or understand. 800-644-1150, the number at Lucia Capital Group. Go to luciacap.com, LUCIACAP.com. You can go see some. We've done videos on these kinds of things. We've got articles, blog posts, all that stuff there. Help you out. And you can also contact a Lucia Capital Group advisor there at luciacap.com. Spotify is where you go for this podcast. We've got a couple of weeks off, I think, after this. Do we not? I believe we do. And then we'll be back with more, maybe even a couple of different advisors who have expressed their desire to come on with me, or maybe you and me.
It's up to you.
I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun. Maybe as we start up again in a week or two, we can do this with a couple of advisors. I'd love to get other viewpoints.
Are they expressing a desire to come on here?
Yes.
With you, or to get rid of me?
Well, no, not to get rid of you, because to get rid of you would mean they would have to take your place and would have to do this on a regular basis. And
nobody's stepping up for that one.
I don't think they take one look at a microphone and they say, "Ooh, I'm an advisor. I'm not really a media person." So I think that's the That's the biggest thing. Anyway, Spotify, you can subscribe to our podcast, get it downloaded, listen, become a regular listener. We talk about this stuff, and if there's any topic you want to hear, let us know, please. All right, out of time. My thanks to Professor Rick Plum, certified financial planner, professional, CFP type. We'll talk to you again next time, whenever that is.
Yes, sir.
And who knows, maybe another guest or two. For Professor Plum, I'm Johnny Dean, podcast host. Thanks so much for listening, tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next time.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. To the extent that this material concerns tax matters, it is not intended or written to be used and cannot be used by a taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding penalties that may be imposed by law. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. No client or prospective client should assume that the information presented serves as a receipt of or a substitute for personalized advice from LCG or from any other investment professional. IRA withdrawals will be taxed at ordinary income rates. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may also be subject to a 10% penalty tax. The information provided is based on current laws, which are subject to change at any time. Lucia Capital Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Social Security rules can be complex. For more information about Social Security benefits, visit the SSA website at ssa.gov or call 800-772-1213 to speak with an SSA representative. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. Insurance services offered through LPL Financial or its licensed affiliates. California Insurance License Number 0518721. Variable annuities are long-term investment products designed for retirement purposes. Variable annuities with guarantees are available through optional riders at additional cost. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuer, subject to their terms and conditions. Early withdrawals may be subject to surrender penalties, and if taken prior to age 59.5, may be subject to an additional 10% federal tax. Annuities are not FDIC insured. Certain terms and conditions apply, so please read insurance company materials carefully. Before investing, carefully consider a variable annuity's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, which contains this and other information, call your financial advisor. Read the prospectus carefully before investing. Fixed-indexed annuities are complex, long-term investments designed for retirement purposes. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuer, subject to their terms and conditions. Generally, returns are based on a market index and are limited such that an investor does not fully participate in market performance. Withdrawals may be subject to surrender penalties or foregoing benefits if withdrawn prior to the contract term. Investors should speak with a financial professional about the contract's features, benefits, risks, and fees, and whether the contract is appropriate for the investor based upon his or her financial situation and objectives. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may be subject to a 10% penalty tax in addition to income tax. Annuities are not FDIC insured. Certain terms and conditions apply, so please read insurance company materials carefully. CDs are FDIC insured up to $250,000 per depositor per insured bank for each account ownership category. It is important to keep in mind that investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity or market risk, interest rate risk. Bonds ordinarily decline in price when interest rates rise and rise in price when interest rates fall, financial or credit risk, inflation or purchasing power risk, and special tax liabilities. Interest may be subject to the alternative minimum tax. Treasury securities are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, but are subject to inflation risk. Before investing, carefully consider a mutual fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, which contains this and other information, call your financial advisor. Read the prospectus carefully before investing. Rick Plum is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Lucia Capital Group, a separate entity from LPL Financial. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, and member FINRA SIPC.